Okay, so enough talking about flow time. Let's go to action. Let's go to the math time. Yeah. So here you taking a look at the process steps, and it's important to know if these steps are happening in parallel or alternative paths. Okay, so you have the two examples in the same page of your notes there. The first one is when activities are done in parallel. Okay, so imagine that. Oops, that's not it. This step are being done. Step A takes 5 minutes, rework 10%. And then at the same time, the process is going to activity B and C, and then coming back at D at the same time. Okay, so that's what's called in parallel. Okay, so they come in two different ways. It's the same process, it's the same application or the same product. They're going in parallel. The activities are happening at the same time, and then they go back to one again. Okay. In this case, first you need to calculate the actual time of each activity, right? So it takes 5 minutes, but you have a 10% rework. So what you're doing here is just multiplying 5 by 1.1, which is basically showing here, right? 5 times 1.1, which is 5.5. What we're doing here for B is taking 12 minutes and multiply by 1.3, so it's 15.6. 15 minutes times 1.0, so still 15 minutes, and then 20 times 1.05, which gives us 21 minutes. And that's what you have here. So that's what you have the total times for each step, right? So we know the time of each step. Now we need to find out how many paths we have, right? So in this case, we have a path that is A, B, and D, and another path that is A, C, and D, right? And if you remember from previous operations management core courses that we talked about project management, we talked about the critical path, and that's kind of the same logic, right? So, what is the critical path in any project? It's basically the one that takes the longest time. And the longest time is the shortest completion time, right? We cannot do it faster than the longest time because you have to wait to all those steps to be done. So although they are in parallel, you need both of them to be ready so you can finish the product, for example, right? In this case, they're happening at the same time. You have to calculate the different paths. So we name it path one and path two, and then you calculate path one will be 5.5 plus 15.6 plus 21, give us 42.1 minutes, and then path two is going to be 5.5 plus 15 plus 21 was going to give us 41.5 minutes. Okay, so what is the flow time is going to be the maximum amount of time. And remember, here we're only looking at core flow time, core process flow time, right? It's going to be the highest one, like the longest one, right? In the critical path methodology. So that's the 42.1. Okay, so very important to understand if they're parallel or alternative paths. If they're parallel path, you calculate all the possible paths. Okay, and the longest one will be your core process flow time. Okay, does that make sense? So you can ask questions during class, and we're going to do a problem with that in class, so you guys can train a little bit more. Okay.